Oh boy. So I've been hearing a lot about this particular story on Twitter and in the news headlines and in my own chat for about a whole day now. And I have actually purposefully gone out of my way to avoid looking at too much about this story because I want to make sure that I read about it on stream in front of you guys. We learn about it together, and you guys get to see what information I use to come to my conclusion before your very eyes. And if we disagree, then you must know something that I don't. And if that's not the case, then I'm pretty confident I could make a case for why you're the one who is wrong and not me. So this story is going to have a little bit of a trigger warning at the beginning. If you are a victim of violence, especially sexual violence, or really just any type of violence, and especially if you're LGBT and especially trans, this story may be a little bit triggering for you. It may be, evocative of similar events you might have gone through. And I would warn you that if you have gone through events similar to what I described, then please consider just taking a quick timeout from the stream during this segment. Just a quick timeout, nothing crazy. Anyway, trigger warning aside, ex-Virginia Tech football player, Isimem, Isimemen, very interesting name. Etut, accused of mistaken gender identity murder of Tinder date. Very interesting wording from New York Post. We don't really like New York Post very much. New York Post is cringe as fuck, so it's not surprising that their titling would be as cringe as that. The former Virginia Tech football player accused of beating a Tinder date to death after mistaking her, they misgender the trans woman in question here, mistaking her for a woman, was acquitted of second-degree murder Friday. Isimemen, Etut, 19, was found not guilty in the 2021 death of Jerry Smith, 40, after his lawyer argued he acted in self-defense. A Christiansburg, Virginia jury deliberated for 3 hours before handing down the verdict, according to the Roanoke Times. Etut had said he visited Smith last April to engage in oral sex after matching with someone named Angie on Tinder. The next month, he returned to the victim's apartment to verify her gender. The linebacker then groped. I assume Angie is the name of the person that he visited and assaulted. Angie, I believe, is the name of the trans woman in question. Someone named Angie on Tinder. The next month, he returned to the victim's apartment to verify her gender. The linebacker then groped Smith before allegedly beating her to death, a detective testified. Etut took the stand in his own defense earlier this week and said he felt violated, that his date lied about her gender. Lied. The defendant said Smith had insisted they meet in the dark and had reached for what he thought was a gun. Etut testified he punched Smith 5 times and kicked her to escape the apartment. Police said Smith did not have a gun, but detectives found a knife under her mattress, so the gun thing was bullshit, obviously. Defense attorney Jimmy Turk argued that Etut acted in self-defense, and his fear and the victim's weapon were not considered by police. Prosecutor Patrick Jensen argued that Smith was in no position to get her knife and said the 153-pound they're just consistently misgendering in this article, by the way. Like the courts misgender, damn, God, we are really in a hell world right now, aren't we? Where it's just Jesus Christ. Prosecutor Patrick Jensen argued that Smith was in no position to get her knife and said the 153-pound woman was no physical match for the elite college athlete who is listed as 6'3", 205 pounds. Same. That is a big disparity, Jensen said. Etut was suspended by Virginia Tech and the Hokies football team after being charged with murder, but was acquitted. So, that is a very, very simple recollection of the story. And I don't really care as much to talk about the specifics of this case because, frankly, nothing that I bring up or talk about will further cement the fact that this is horrible and awful and you know, fuck this guy and all of that, right? Like, obviously we all agree on that. What I really want to do, and what I think will actually make discussing this more productive, will be to talk about the mindset that motivates this type of behavior and where we see it in its most mundane forms very commonly, and why I worry about the ways we might see it in its most dangerous forms. All right, listen, I know I'm a cis guy. I'm cis, I'm straight, I'm white. If you had like a checkbox of privileges, I'd check basically all of them that don't involve socioeconomic status. You know, like except for like wealth and stuff, I'm pretty privileged. You know, as far as like what I was born as, I'm pretty privileged. However, I am going to Xandersplain being trans and the trans rights movement right now for a moment here. So for a very long time, trans people basically lived as like a secret, stealthed, quote unquote, part of society. They existed, they were around doing what they could to live their best lives, but due to the fact that society was hardly accepting of black people and gay people at that point, trans people were basically like an underground society, is my understanding almost. Like, the closest you'll ever find to like an underground, like a nation or world spanning society would have been like the trans community in the 90s and before that, is my understanding. Especially when I talk to like older LGBT people that like know about that shit, they're always like, yeah, back in like the 90s and shit. Oh yeah, like everybody knew it's crazy shit. The big sort of cultural thing. And the normies, so to say, really only got glimpses and peeks of that culture and of that sort of existence of trans people. And so for the most part, you only ever really heard about trans people as the transvestites, the transsexuals, the insert other weird words for trans people that people have used over the years, and all the countless jokes, whether they were meant in outright mean spirit or just ignorance, you know, that you've probably seen in media. For a very long time, when media ever acknowledged the existence of trans people, it was very much to make fun of them. Now, however, we've seen our society become so much more steeply progressive, where it almost seems like the concept of being progressive is becoming more popular. So it's not just that progressive ideals are becoming more popular among, you know, especially younger generations, but the concept of being a progressive and thus amiable to, you know, new ideas that could come along is also getting more popular among Zoomers. So it's definitely worth, you know, oh yeah, and fetishization was pretty common of trans people too. Yeah, of course. So yeah, definitely like hopeful for the Zoomers and their kids and whatever as well. Regardless though, to be clear, what's really important here is what happened as society started to become exposed to trans people more often. I want to reference a show that I know is going to trigger people so much. We're going to have South Park fans in here who will be mad that I'm criticizing it. We'll have people who hate South Park in here that are mad that I'm giving it any praise. We'll have people here that don't know anything about South Park and are completely confused. It's going to be really exciting. I assume many of you are familiar with the TV show South Park, one of the most critically acclaimed animated parody shows of all time, okay? And back in season 12, this was back in like 2007, maybe 2008 at the latest would have been the year this was produced. Back in season 12 of South Park, they did an arc where a character, the main character's teacher by the name of Mr. Garrison, I guess realizes that he's trans and transitions to become a woman and gets vaginoplasty and top surgery and, you know, obviously gets breasts and everything, like all that, right? Now, however, and this is where the issues come up, the presentation of the character is very much like the stereotype, the transphobic stereotype. You know, they you know, Mr. Garrison, the show, has like gray balding hair, you know, and glasses, and is very much a masculine character, like, you know, unattractive masculine character on his own. And all they really do to transition him is do the breasts and like some earrings and I think maybe lipstick, and it's very much played off as very much as a mean-spirited joke. However, ironically enough, despite the fact that the humor in that episode, in that arc, was so overwhelmingly you know, transphobic, I found that when you compare that to modern South Park that touches on trans stuff, it's so much better than the modern shit. The modern shit is essentially no different than, you know, Attack Helicopter. How many times can they tell the same joke about someone pretending to be, you know, a main character pretends to be trans to get something that they want out of it? How many times is South Park going to do that story? They've done it 3 times now. South Park has unironically done on 3 different occasions stories where characters pretend to be trans women in order to get some sort of advantage. At this point, you've taken the Attack Helicopter, or like the transphobes can't come up with new jokes idea, and you've done it yourselves in a show known for its originality by copying yourself, frankly. Anyway, the thing that stood out to me, though, most was at the end of that episode back in season 12, there was a scene. It was very, very obvious satire, poking fun at transphobia. Something that modern South Park, I don't really feel like would do, because modern South Park agrees with the transphobia. Back then, it almost feels as like they had a shred, at least, of understanding for, understanding for trans people, or for like marginalized groups. You know, there was a scene at the end of the episode, Eek. It's a penis, I think it's called. It's called Eek, a penis, I think is the name of the episode, where Mr. Garrison detransitions back to a man, and, you know, decides it was a mistake to transition and everything, and says at the end of the episode, you know, standing around the whole school, has his penis back, got the, you know, the top surgery undone, and is standing with the whole school surrounding him and says, you know, I was a dude, you know, I learned something today. I was a dude the whole time because women can have babies and men can't. That's what makes the difference between a man and a woman. And then one of like the parents in the school auditorium speaks up and says, my wife has had a uterus cancer and had to get a hysterectomy. Does she can't have babies? What's that mean? And Mr. Garrison says, well then, get an AIDS test because your wife's a man, you effing F-slur. And then the episode immediately cuts to black and immediately goes to credits. Just a smash cut to credits immediately right there. And that joke is extremely, extremely edgy and offensive, but at the same time, it's so, it indicates to me that they're poking fun at their own position there. Something they're incapable of when you look at modern day South Park, which is heavily informed by the, admittedly, the current state of needing to dunk on the SJWs, the trans agenda, the crazy lefties at every fucking turn. I will say the delay makes it hard to understand what you guys are whatting. The Sissy was a great episode, in my humble opinion. I would fail to see the problem with it. Could you explain the problem with it to me? The Sissy episode in particular is one that I have not seen since its premiere, so I would need to rewatch it to tell you specifics that I had issues with. However, my original watch through of it was back, you know, when it came out, when we were kind of plunging into the age of right-wing dominance online. And so, from what I remember of the episode, literally one of the plot points is Cartman pretending to be trans in order to get into the girls' bathroom and just doing the thing that TERFs say trans women do. And yes, we know Cartman's disingenuous, but at no point is it ever even implied that trans women that aren't Cartman, you know, who aren't in that circumstance trying to, you know, pull some shit, aren't, you know, some sort of mischievous sexual predators, you know? My point is, society's slowly gotten more and more introduced to trans people, and it's gone from being a response of, you know, sort of ignoring trans people as sort of like an underclass in society, a subculture to be ignored by you know, the moral upstanding straights of society. And then you go a little bit forward into the future, and trans people start to become sort of a joke to reference in comedies, you know, like, oh yeah, make trans people the butt of the joke in comedy movies and stuff. Trans people get you know, a lot more accepted nowadays. You know, society's broadly pushing more in that direction. And now the internet, where counterculture thrives, is doing its best to continue to uphold that tradition. And what I'm starting to see now is the response is going from being no response at all, like ignoring, then joking, then vitriolic hatred, to now violence. It has escalated all the way to the point of violence. It's been a slow but steady escalation over the decades that, you know, trans rights and you know, just generally civil rights overall have been relevant in American politics. It's been a slow but steady increase in intensity. And it feels as though now we've reached a point where a Republican politician who is either running or already elected in some southern red state will have like had something exposed about them saying they want to gas trans people, which happened, by the way. And I'll be like, another day in an American red state. That's just where we're fucking headed. Another bill that clamps down on the right for like trans people to be known about in society and be accepted as like a you know, a thing that should be allowed to exist in society. Yep, just another Tuesday. The point that I'm laboriously making here, and I've been meaning to make my segments a lot shorter so that I don't, you know, so I don't overload Cherry, is that this all started with ignoring and then jokes and mocking, and has escalated to the point of, now I'm not saying there wasn't violence back when society broadly ignored trans people, but now we're getting to the point where, as a political statement, people are getting off the hook for murdering trans women with the trans panic defense. Also, and this is the most important thing about this, this has now set a legal precedent for the trans panic defense. That's the most serious thing about that, or about this. This cannot be undone. There is no way to like get the Infinity Stones and Thanos unsnap this from happening. There is now an established legal precedent for the trans panic defense, and that is going to be of significant concern when things like this happen in the future, because now lawyers can point to the outcome of this case and say, well, we'll have to point to Zimmerman versus Smith, and you ruled in favor of, well, I guess it would be a Toot versus Smith. And in that case, they'd have to be like, well, you ruled in favor of a Toot in that case, so yeah, you're gonna have to rule in favor of my guy. Like, yeah, oh boy. Yeah, the legal precedent's a big deal. That's definitely worth being concerned about. Listen, I know this is stressful. I know it's depressing. I know this kind of bad news is like the last thing that you want to hear, but it is important that when shit like this is happening, you stay informed and you do not doomer. You cannot just like shrink away and stop being politically active. Stick around, talk to people. Don't just use my community as a source of entertainment. Use it as like a source of, I almost said therapy, but I don't want that to be mistaken. Listen very carefully. Talking to people and having friends and social interactions, especially with people that like can relate to the, you know, stress and struggles you're going through, can be very therapeutic. So make some friends in my community if you're stressed about this, and you will likely make friends that feel the same passion about these topics as you. I had someone message me that they met their current, like, I think they've lived together for a year now, girlfriend through my channel, like through my website chat. And I was like, oh, that's so awesome. Anyway, all right, everybody. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like. It really helps the channel, the video, this segment, if it's going up on its own after, you know, the fact in the future. Liking it and commenting really helps it out more than you realize. If you're watching live right now and you're watching the stream, please consider hitting the like button. It just helps the channel, the segment, the stream more than you even know. It boosts the channel like crazy in the algorithm. And of course, if you want to support me financially, you can do so by subscribing, gifting a sub, or otherwise supporting me on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or you can support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, or Patreon. And of course, you can follow my social medias, linked down in the description below. That includes my Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and my fan Discord. Definitely join my fan Discord. It's a good community. You definitely want to get in there, so definitely consider it. All right, thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.